Before entering the story, please subscribe to the channel, like and share to help me. Thank you. Turn cold and watch them chase. They never truly value warmth. Until it's gone, you give your time, your energy, your vulnerability. You show up fully, thinking it's the right thing to do, thinking they'll see it, appreciate it, reciprocate. But what happens? They forget how to show up for you the way you show up for them. Why? The moment someone feels like they have you, they stop trying. It's not even personal, it's predictable. When you're always available, you become invisible. They start pulling away. They take longer to reply. Because comfort kills curiosity. People chase what's uncertain. It's the nature of human psychology. Not bitterness, not spite, just silence. They wonder what happened, why your energy changed. It confuses them. It unsettles them. Detachment. Emotional control. That's why coldness is power. Not because you're playing games, but because you're done playing theirs. When you turn cold, everything shifts. Suddenly, your absence creates a vacuum. They start to notice the quiet. They replayed the last thing you said. And in that confusion, the chase begins. You see, people respect distance. They admire what they can't quite grasp. They're pulled toward what doesn't need them. When you become emotionally cold, you stop reacting. You stop explaining. You stop justifying your worth. You just exist unbothered, unaffected, unavailable. People who don't need to be convinced of your value. That's when they feel the weight of your silence. That's when your energy becomes rare, and rarity always commands attention. But this isn't about manipulation. This is about reclaiming your focus. Because the truth is, when you stop giving to the wrong people, you start attracting the right ones. People who respect your space. People who match your effort. That you'd keep showing up, keep caring, keep pouring into a connection they only half respected. Cold doesn't mean cruel. It means clear. Clear about your boundaries. Clear about your energy. Clear about who gets access to you. It means showing up for yourself first before trying to impress, convince, or chase anyone else. You don't need to announce the shift. You don't owe them closure. You just become quiet and focused. Because real power isn't loud. It's calm, it's composed, it's cold when it needs to be. And when that shift happens, when they feel your energy pull back, when they realize you're no longer orbiting their world, they panic. Not because you're gone, but because they thought you'd never leave. They underestimated you. They assumed your loyalty was permanent, that no matter how they treated you, you'd stay. But when you go cold, you shatter that illusion. You remind them that your attention is earned, not owed, that your time is limited and valuable, that your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. And suddenly, the roles reverse. The one who used to pull away now starts to reach out. The one who left your messages unread now rewrites, "There's 3 times before hitting send." The one who took your warmth for granted now chases the chill you left behind. This is what happens when you stop being predictable. You become magnetic. People are drawn to mystery, not availability. They're obsessed with what they can't control. An emotional detachment, it's the ultimate control. It's not that you stop caring, you just stop overgiving. You stop begging for clarity from people who benefit from keeping you confused. You stop prioritizing people who only think about you when you're gone. And here's the part they'll never admit. They liked the version of you that needed them, because it made them feel powerful. But when you go cold, when you become indifferent, they lose that power. Now you set the terms. Now you decide who stays and who goes. Now you control the narrative. And the truth is, they don't chase you because they love you. When they start saying all the things you once longed to hear, they chase you because they lost control. Because the power dynamic flipped hand, they want it back. But coldness keeps you sharp. It helps you see who's real and who's reacting, who's actually sorry, and who just hates losing access to you. Most people aren't scared to lose you. They're scared to lose the version of you that made life easier for them. That version, you buried it when you went cold. Now, you operate from a place of strength. No longer seeking validation. No longer bending to be liked. No longer molding yourself to fit someone else's comfort zone. You move different. You speak less. You mean more. And when they finally realize what they lost, when they try to crawl back in, you'll see it clearly. They're not chasing you. They're chasing the access they used to have. The version of you that gave endlessly, waited patiently, hoped silently, but that version no longer exists. Because coldness changes you. It sharpens your vision. You stop entertaining bare minimum. You stop confusing potential with consistency. You start holding people to the same standard you hold yourself. And in that transformation, you become untouchable. See, when you were warm, you were easy to reach, easy to read, easy to overlook. But now you're a mystery. You no longer reveal everything. You no longer explain yourself. You've become calculated, intentional, disciplined, and that energy, it terrifies the people who once felt superior to you. They sense the shift. They can feel it in your tone, in the silence between messages, in your lack of emotional reactions. You're no longer emotionally invested in being chosen. You're too focused on choosing yourself. That's the part they never saw coming. They thought your kindness was weakness. They thought your loyalty was naivety. But they failed to realize your warmth was a choice. And now, you've made a different one. Cold, not cruel. Quiet, not absent. Reserved, not bitter. You've simply recalibrated your energy. You give where it's earned. You engage where it's mutual. And you walk away not to punish but to protect your peace. Because here's the truth. When you stop chasing, they start noticing. When you stop giving, they start remembering. When you stop trying, they start feeling. Your silence becomes louder than any explanation. Your indifference becomes more powerful than any argument. And your absence becomes the lesson they never thought they'd have to learn. So you stay focused, you stay calm, you keep building, and you let your coldness say the rest. Because nothing speaks louder than a man who no longer needs to speak. When you go cold, you shift the energy in every room you enter. You no longer chase closure, you become it. You no longer beg for effort, you match it. You withdraw without warning, without drama, without apology. And if it's not matched, that kind of silence, it's surgical. It cuts through all the noise, all the excuses, all the fake promises. It exposes who is only there for convenience. People don't respect effort. They don't have to earn. But when they feel your absence more than they ever acknowledged your presence, that's when the regret sets in. They remember how safe you felt, how steady your presence was, how deeply you cared even when they didn't deserve it. And that memory haunts them more than any goodbye ever could. But by the time they finally get it, you're already gone mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You've outgrown the need to prove your worth to people who were blind to it in the first place. This is where real power lives. Not in loud declarations, not in revenge or pettiness, but in evolution. You evolve into a man who doesn't chase, doesn't cling, doesn't collapse. A man who knows his value so deeply, he refuses to negotiate it. That's when the world begins to respond differently. People feel your energy before you speak. They sense your standards without you having to explain them. They either rise to meet you or they fall away silently. And that's exactly how it should be. Because you've learned, you don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need to fight to be seen. Keep moving. Keep turning colder. You don't need to chase what's not running toward you. You just need to keep rising. Until the only thing left around you is what's real. And what's real never needs to be forced. When you turn cold, you stop negotiating your place in someone's life. You stop over-explaining your intentions. You stop overcompensating for people to blind to recognize your value. You become solid, grounded, and that stability paired with your emotional discipline is rare. Rare enough to intimidate, rare enough to attract, rare enough to disrupt. See, most people are used to reactions. They thrive off your emotions. They push buttons just to feel in control. But when those buttons no longer work, when you stop reacting, they're left with nothing but themselves. And that silence? It forces them to confront who they are without your validation. They start questioning, was I wrong? Why did he go quiet? Did I lose him? For real, that uncertainty, that loss of emotional leverage, it flips the entire dynamic. Now they're chasing the closure they never gave you. They're stuck wondering what changed. And you've already moved forward mentally sharper, emotionally lighter, spiritually detached. Because cold isn't the absence of feeling, it's the mastery of it. It's knowing when to feel and when to withhold, when to lean in and when to fall back. Not out of fear, not out of pride, but out of clarity. Clarity about what you deserve. Clarity about what drains you. Clarity about who no longer deserves front row access to your life. And once that clarity hits, everything changes. You stop trying to fix broken connections. You stop watering dead plants. You stop begging people to see what's obvious. Instead, you conserve your energy. You protect your peace. You guard your focus like your life depends on it. Because it does. Now the same people who once treated you like an option are staring at a version of you that no longer needs them at all. That coldness, it's not a defense mechanism. It's a filter, separating the ones who truly value you from the ones who only valued your access. And once that filter is in place, your life gets quiet, but not empty. Clear, focused, powerful. The noise fades, the drama disappears. And in its place, discipline, direction, peace. Because when you turn cold, you no longer operate from emotion, you operate from intention. You're no longer swayed by temporary feelings or impulsive distractions. You think sharper, move smarter, speak less, command more. That kind of loyalty, it's sacred, it's earned. You realize not everyone deserves the softness you once gave so freely. That kind of warmth, you don't hand it out hoping someone will treat it right. You wait, you watch, you measure. And if it's not reciprocated with the same clarity, energy, and respect, you pull back effortlessly, without warning, because a man who knows his worth doesn't beg. He doesn't convince. He doesn't chase. He simply chooses. Chooses who gets access. Chooses who gets time. Chooses where his energy goes and where it no longer belongs. That kind of control, it's rare. And rare always creates demand. Now they want back in. Now they remember your value. Now they see what they lost. But what they don't realize is that turning cold wasn't just about them, it was about you. About reclaiming your edge. About learning to protect your peace like it's currency, because it is. Every time you said yes to the wrong people, you are stealing time from your own purpose. Every time you over-explain a feeling, but not anymore. Now you live by a different code, one rooted in silence, strength, precision. You don't say much, but everything you do carries weight. And the moment they feel that absence, that distance, that new energy, you become unforgettable. Because when a man turns cold, they never forget how warm he used to be. And that memory, it burns. It lingers longer than any message, longer than any apology, longer than any moment they thought they could take for granted. Who stayed too long, who tried too hard. Because deep down, they know they'll never get that version of you again. The one who cared too much, that version died the day you realized your energy is a privilege, not a donation. Now, every move you make is calculated. No chaos. Just distant sand, silence louder than any goodbye. Not out of spite, but out of self-respect. You've learned that peace is more valuable than present. That mystery is more attractive than neediness. And that walking away doesn't make you weak, it makes you dangerous. You care, but you don't cling. See, the man who can walk away without warning is the man no one wants to lose, because he doesn't scream, doesn't beg, doesn't throw tantrums. He just disappears. No closure. And they start to realize the attention they once ignored is now scarce. The connection they once abused is now out of reach. And the comfort they once felt, gone, because you've shifted from being emotionally available to emotionally disciplined. You feel, but you don't react. You love, but you don't lose yourself in the process. You're no longer trying to prove anything. You let your absence raise the questions your words never could. You let the silence speak. You let the results show. And in that silence, you become unforgettable, untouchable, undeniable. Because when a man turns cold, he becomes the fire everyone wants to stand near again. But this time, not everyone gets a step close. Because this time, there's a gate, a standard, a boundary forged in silence and sharpened through every disappointment. You don't open the door just because someone knocks. You don't respond just because someone remembers you exist. You don't lower the bar just to feel seen. You've outgrown the cycle of being too available, too forgiving, too eager to prove your worth. You don't move like that anymore. Now, your time is currency. Your energy is sacred. Your access is limited. They'll call you cold. They'll say you changed. They'll try to guilt you into becoming that warm version of you they once drained. But what they'll never admit is how much they missed that version of you, how much they relied on it, how much they took from it. And now, they don't know how to handle the man who no longer needs to be needed. The man who's content in his solitude, who doesn't seek approval, validation, or reassurance. Who doesn't fold under silence, he thrives in it, because being cold isn't about being heartless. It's about being heartproof. It's about not letting your emotions write checks your self-worth. Can't cash? You've learned the most powerful men in the room are the ones who don't need to raise their voice. The ones who can walk away without a scene. The ones who can choose silence and let the echo of their absence do the talking. So you keep building, keep sharpening, keep walking with purpose, even if you walk alone. Because the colder you move, the clearer everything becomes. Who's real? Who's loyal? Who's only here when it's easy? And as the dust settles, you'll see it all. With no emotion, no regret, just clarity. And power in that clarity, it's your new compass. You no longer get lost in mixed signals or false promises. You don't fall for charm, you look for consistency. You don't get swayed by apologies, you miss actions. You're no longer led by feelings. You're led by standards, and those standards, they weren't built from comfort. They were forged in disappointment, in silence. In all the moments you gave more than you got, Dan finally said, never again. Now you lead with presence, not pressure. With purpose, not people please. With conviction, not confusion. That's why they chase, not because you play games, but because you've stopped playing along. They feel the distance. They feel the new version of you, unavailable, unaffected, uninterested in anything that doesn't bring peace or progress. And it haunts them, because when you were warm, they felt in control. Now that you're cold, they feel lost. And they'll do anything to thaw what they once froze over with their indifference. But the door doesn't open just because they want back in. Now, you evaluate. You observe. You wait because you've learned that what's real doesn't rush you. You've mastered patience. And patience is dangerous because it means you're no longer desperate. You're no longer hungry for attention. You're full on self-respect, direction, and discipline. You'd rather walk alone in peace than be surrounded in noise. You'd rather keep your circle small than shrink your standards for company. You'd rather say nothing and let your absence scream the truth louder than any confrontation ever could. Protect his focus. Protect his mission. Because when a man turns cold, he doesn't do it to punish. He does it to protect. Protect the man he's becoming. And the man you're becoming? He's not moved by opinions. He's not shaken by distance. He's not softened by guilt trips, nostalgia, or sweet words laced with old patterns. He sees the game before it's played. He hears the lies before they're spoken. Because now, your intuition is no longer clouded by emotion. It's backed by experience. You've seen what happens when you give too much. You've felt the drain of one-sided loyalty. You've lived through the silence that follows betrayal. And now, you use that silence as armor. You don't need to defend your decisions anymore. You don't need to explain your coldness to those who created it. If they really cared, they would have changed when you were warm, not after you went cold. And the more you stay in this space, claire.com/collected, the more they unravel. They try harder, reach further, say more, because the version of you they once ignored is now the version they can't replace. And they know it. But the catch is, they're not chasing you because they understand your value now. They're chasing because they lost the control they had over someone who once gave too easily. This is where most men fold. They take the bait, let the compliments, the apologies, the I miss yous, pull them back into old cycles. But not you. You've upgraded, you've seen the truth. And once you've tasted peace, chaos can't seduce you anymore. Now, your coldness isn't a phase. It's a lifestyle, a mindset, a discipline. You speak less, but your silence says everything. You show up less, but your absence leaves a crater. You care deeply but selectively. Because now, not everyone qualifies for your warmth. And as you keep rising, evolving, distancing, they'll keep watching, wondering how they lost someone who once would have done anything to stay. And that's the irony. They didn't lose you in the moment you walked away. They lost you slowly, moment by moment. Every time they dismissed your effort, every time they minimized your loyalty, every time they thought you'd never leave, you were slipping away while they were busy testing your patience. Until one day, you stopped explaining, stopped reaching, stopped caring. And that's when they felt it. The shift, the chill, the silence that speaks louder than every argument they thought they'd win. Because once a man truly detaches, there's no speech, no gesture, no apology that can pull him back. Not because he's bitter, but because he's done. You don't hate him, you don't wish them harm, you just don't carry the weight anymore. You've dropped the rope in a tug of war that was never worth winning. And the best part, you didn't burn bridges. You just stopped crossing ones that always left you bleeding. You learned how to protect your energy, like it's sacred because it is. You started honoring your peace, like it's purpose, because it is. You realized that not everyone deserves access to the man you've become, especially those who couldn't handle the man you were. Let them call it heartless. Let them talk. Now, your presence is earned, not given. Your time is invested, not wasted. Your loyalty is sharp, measured, and reserved for the rare. Let them call it cold, because while they're busy trying to figure out how to get back in, you're already 10 steps ahead, building, moving, becoming. And that version of you, the one they thought would wait forever, he's long gone, cleared on what you stand for, buried beneath the silence they created. Now you walk like a man who's been through fire and came out colder, but cleaner, and clearer. Clear on who you are, clear on what you'll never tolerate again. You don't entertain confusion anymore. You don't participate in emotional to-go. You don't carry dead weight out of loyalty, because you've realized, when you stop handing your light to people who live in shadows, you stop dimming your own potential. They taught you exactly who not to be around. Every cold shoulder, every delayed reply, every moment of silence when you needed presence. All of it shaped this new version of you. So no, you're not bitter. You're just better. More aware, more focused, more aligned. You're not looking for people to understand your coldness. You're looking for people who never needed it to begin with. People who match energy, people who communicate with clarity, people who see your worth without you having to shrink, bend, or bleed to prove it. Until then, you keep your circle small, your standards high, and your emotions locked tight behind discipline, not distance. Because emotional control is the new dominance. And a man who's mastered his emotions, he's untouchable. Not because he doesn't feel, but because he doesn't react. No one stays without respect. Not out of anger, not out of impulse, not out of fear of losing someone. You don't fear loss anymore. You've already lost pieces of yourself trying to keep the wrong ones close. Now you protect your energy like a soldier guards his post. No one gets in without purpose. Let them miss you. Let them wonder. Let them sit in the same silence they once forced you to swallow. Because you're not cold to hurt them, you're cold to heal you. And healing isn't loud. It's quiet, unapologetic, and done without warning. Without warning and without announcement. No grand exit, no final words. Just distance, sharp, clean, and absolute. Because healing doesn't ask for attention, it creates separation. It doesn't beg to be understood, it moves on. And when you finally choose yourself, fully and completely, you stop needing permission to protect your peace. That's what they never expected. They thought you'd always explain yourself, always come back, always care. But the man you are now doesn't explain. He doesn't negotiate. He doesn't sit at tables where he has to prove his worth. You've learned that silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. That disappearing isn't running, that turning cold isn't losing your hearts. Finding your spine, and in that spine, there's strength. A calm, unshakable strength that no one can manipulate. Because a man with emotional discipline can't be baited. He can't be guilty. He can't be pulled back into chaos, dressed up as connection. You operate different now. You listen more, speak less. You measure before you give. You pause before you pour. Because not everyone deserves the depth you carry. Not everyone deserves the peace you've earned. Not everyone is qualified for the evolved version of you. So you keep it moving. No anger, no noise, no need for closure. You just fade slowly, silently, completely. And when they finally look around, searching for the version of you they once controlled, they'll realize he's gone, not missing, not hiding, just risen above the drama, the noise, the games. You didn't disappear. You elevated. You outgrew the cycle. And now, from this new height, everything looks different. You see the patterns clearly. The manipulation, the emotional breadcrumbing that used to keep you around. But none of it works anymore because you've detached from the hook. And the man who's no longer hooked, he's dangerous in the best way. Unreachable by the same tactics. Unaffected by the same traps. They might still try. A hey, stranger, a memory sent out of nowhere. A compliment disguised as reconnection. But all of it falls flat because your energy no longer flinches. You don't need their validation anymore. You've built something stronger. Self-trust, self-control, self-worth. And those three things, they're bulletproof, they don't bend for comfort, they don't break for company. You've become the man who doesn't chase, he chooses. Who doesn't react to you, who doesn't speak out of pain but out of principle. You're no longer trying to prove you're good enough. You know you are, and that silent confidence, it makes noise in all the right places. Now your presence speaks before you do. Your silence holds more weight than their words. And your distance demands more respect than your closeness ever did. Because when you turned cold, you didn't just walk away from them. You walked toward yourself. And once you find peace within, nothing outside of you holds the same power again. Nothing outside of you can shake what's already anchored within. That's the final shift they never saw coming. They thought your strength came from how much you gave. But your real strength was always in your ability to pull back. Because restraint is power. Not reacting is power. Silence is power. You no longer give people the luxury of easy access. You no longer fill in the silence they created. You no longer bleed for people who wouldn't even hand you a bandage. And in that detachment, you've gained everything they once made you question: your value, your clarity, your freedom. Now, you're no longer available to the same cycles. You don't repeat, you rise. You don't dwell, you decide. Decide to move forward without apology. Decide to protect your energy without guilt. Decide to turn cold, not to freeze out the world, but to filter it. Because the colder you move, the more clearly you see who drains you, who fuels you, and who no longer deserves a seat at your table. You're not punishing anyone. You're just not handing out second chances like they're free. Because they're not, they're earned. And your forgiveness no longer comes at the cost of your peace. So now you walk different. Not with arrogance but with assurance. Not with bitterness but with boundaries. And those boundaries, they speak for you. They warn the world. I've changed, not because of pain, but because of awareness. And that awareness, that unshakable, disciplined, grounded awareness, is why they'll forever remember the day you turned cold, as the day they lost something they will never touch again. Because once you've tasted peace, you never chase chaos again. You no longer need to be understood by those who refused to understand you when it mattered. You no longer seek connection that costs your self-respect, and you no longer tolerate energy that forces you to shrink, explain, or beg. You've learned. Not everything that feels familiar is safe. And not everyone who returns deserves to stay. So now, you move with intention. You protect your solitude like a fortress because it's where you rebuilt yourself. It's where you stopped breaking just to keep others comfortable. You're not looking back. You're not reopening closed doors. You're not returning to spaces that once taught you to doubt yourself. You've accepted the truth that sometimes the biggest act of strength is to do nothing, say nothing, just leave. Because walking away without a fight doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you finally cared enough about yourself. And now, you make peace your priority. If something threatens your calm, it loses access. No explanation. No arguments. No second chances. They had you when you were soft. They lost you when you got smart. Now, all they can do is replay the moments they didn't think would be the last. Because when a man turns cold with purpose, he becomes unforgettable. Not because of what he says, but because of what he withholds. His energy, his warmth, his presence. And that silence, it leaves a scar. One that echoes in every conversation they try to start again. Every memory they try to revive. Every version of you they'll never get back. Because the colder you became, the more they realized. You were the fire they never knew they needed, until they were left in the dark.